OutKick 360, ready to go. Friday edition is here. The crew is back. Lance Lee is here. David Reed, Jakob Swanson, Jake Popoff, our production assistant, and you. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for subscribing on YouTube or wherever you're watching across the OutKick network. Big show planned today. We are ready to get after it. Gentlemen, good morning.
Let's not limply into this weekend. Let's sprint hard into the weekend with today's show. That's my message.
I'm all for sprinting hard. Yep. I appreciate you guys' flexibility as always when one of us can't.
Absolutely.
So you missed the show yesterday. I'm in this little time warp for some reason where I'm adding a year on to everything.
Yeah.
Like where someone says, "How old are you?" I round up.
Teresa does that.
And I normally don't do that, so I don't know when this started for me. But yesterday we were like, it's Simon's 6th grade graduation. No. And he's like, no, it's 5th. And I'm like,
5th.
Yeah, it was 5th.
5th grade recognition, they call it, which I appreciate. I'm not big into the graduation thing. So he's done with elementary school.
So let's just rename it. We're not into graduations. Let's rename it.
He's got a half day today, which is really purposeless because yesterday.
After recognition?
Yesterday they didn't pretend to do anything. They had this recognition and then they had a huge party. And there were videos of, they're just outside dancing and doing conga lines. And they had something called a color.
It's like Hamilton broke out.
Yeah.
It's like a full
It really was. And they had something called a color run, which was spectacular. They all got a white T-shirt that said Class of 2028. And they run through, and the teachers are spraying them with bottles of color stuff.
Like chalk or
so
whatever.
It creates like almost a tie-dye T-shirt for them running through. So they'll come home with their
that's cool, yeah.
great T-shirts. And then I took him and 3 of his buddies to the pool, and they carried it on from there. We had a big crab dinner, which is his favorite thing. And it's a big occasion.
Now he's back to school.
So he's going, Then he rode his bike today, so they love riding their bike to school. But there's a giant hill, so coming home from school, they'll be walking their bikes up the giant hill. But on to middle school. And, these kids, it's so funny the things they're excited about. They've got lockers next year, and they're allowed to talk on their way from one class to another. They don't have to be quiet. This is like the biggest thing in the world to them. You mean we can talk to each other while we go from class to class?
Unleashed.
This is, they're unleashed.
I applaud the discipline of the school also, where they don't speak to each other. They know they can't speak.
You get in trouble as you go, en masse from class to class. And there aren't a lot of big transitions. So he won some Mr. Sports award and got some citizenship thing. And it was fun to see them having so much fun.
Mr. Sports also would be a great name for a pro wrestler back in the day.
Mr. Sports.
It's Mr. Sports.
He's great at everything. Mr. Perfect.
Yeah, Evie had her kindergarten graduation, which sort of like yours, it's weird that she had her kindergarten graduation and 4 more days of school. Today is their field day where they're out participating in bounce houses and Kona ice trucks and all of that. And then I don't even know why they're going back. I think our last day of school is next Wednesday. But I don't know what they're doing. They've already graduated.
Well, what they're doing is keeping their parents. Keeping.
We're not complaining. We've paid for
not that it's a babysitting
service, but kind of is at this age. It's both a learning experience and a babysitting service.
Yeah, I appreciated yesterday that they didn't go back and try to pretend to be doing some education. It was it was a party day.
It was on to the party, on to the dancing. You guys ready for a big weekend? I let you guys down on my parlay last night. The Pacers, who put up 144 points in their play-in game, lost by like 44. They were down by 40.
Well, they gave up 144, right? It was either exactly 144 or more than that. I
checked in in the third quarter on my phone to see where we were, hoping that we would get a final 5-minute, final 3-minute finish. It wasn't even close. I apologized immediately when I saw the third quarter score. I'm like, sorry guys, I've let you down. And then Vegas and Minnesota in their hockey game hit the over fairly easily. It was 4-2. Over under was 5.5 whenever I checked. So we would have. I feel like I'm 1 for 2, but 0 for 1 on my 360.
I love how we do the math on that.
We were close.
0 for 1 on the parlay, but 1 for 1 on the betting. As soon as you said, sorry, guys, you texted me what it was. I texted you I was in. I actually got a half point better on the Pacers, which made a huge difference.
142, by the way, given up by the Pacers last night.
The line was moving. It should have told us. When I should have said, no, guys, I'm out. The line's moving against the Pacers. I knew as soon as you said sorry, all right, I'm up. So this morning I got up and I sat down and I started running numbers and stuff. I ran into one of those things where one of the things I wanted to do, it wouldn't let me combine into a parlay. But I'm going three-way. I had to go to 3
Oh,
in
good.
order
Let's
to get,
crank it up.
Get the
Good.
odds
I like
up.
it. We'll get
And,
the odds. Yeah, we'll get even more money if we
We've got one Sunday thing.
So we have the weekend parlay. That's great.
One tonight thing. I'm not sure about the third thing.
You know, Scott Van Pelt does the bad beats or whatever. This is not a bad beat in that we lost that game by 23 points.
It's a bad beat. And
they lost by 27. We had 4.
Pick.
I think we got it yesterday.
You had 3.5.
At +4. So
no, I had 4. You had 3.5.
So we lost the game by 24.5 points. 23.5 points.
He has bad beats. We have bad picks.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
the difference.
Oh, it's a bad beat.
And the Pacers have bad nights where they give up 142 points, which is a tough look.
It's a bad beat. We got beaten really badly.
It was not good.
Julio Jones in the headlines has stayed in the headlines on whether or not the Atlanta Falcons are going to trade him. We're going to hit on that. PGA Championship is going on where, speaking of bets, Chad can really cash in if Lefty plays well.
Come on, Phil. Come on, Phil Mickelson.
Explain these odds.
So I bet $3 on Phil Mickelson to win outright, and currently, I have to go back and look, it's something over $900. I would win at FanDuel if he wins outright.
Yeah, he's not going to win.
But okay, you say that, Paul.
Where
He's
is he right
currently
now?
3 strokes off the lead. He is through 15 holes today, 1 under for the day, 3 under for the tournament. Brandon Grace is at 6 under. We had the fun with this pronunciation before. Bezuidenhout?
Yeah, you nailed it.
Bezuidenhout is 4 under.
Killing it.
Ian Poulter 4 under, and Phil Mickelson's right there at 3 under. Come on, Lefty. Come on, Lefty. This would be a big one
I
for me.
appreciate you rooting, and I hope you win $900. But he's not going to win.
It'll be tough.
Crazy hit last night with John Tavares and the Maple Leafs with him being carted off and how that looked. The update is he's out of the hospital, which is great news.
Remarkable.
Which is great news.
So he was going down awkwardly, and then he caught a knee from somebody skating by. I was talking to David Reed before the show. The first highlight I saw of it, the way people on the ice, I think before trainers got there, maybe as trainers arrived, the way the highlight was cut, looked like they were going straight to his neck to get him bent backwards. Also looked like they could have screwed up his knees. But I thought he got slashed across the throat. Like I thought we had a skate to the throat situation because it looked like they were
applying pressure
to his throat when actually they were just trying to get his head back. But usually they come from the side. So it was just very awkward. But initially when I saw it, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to see a puddle of blood any second here. So I was relieved that it wasn't that. But then you see it again, and that's one of those things you only need to see once. You don't. I'm not one to look at it multiple times to see the breakdown. When I know a guy's head is getting thrown back at a terrible angle in a whiplashy situation like that, I don't really care to see it over and over. The broken leg, the bad head out. Everybody, I'm sure, is relieved that he's out of the hospital.
Yep.
But what a terrible moment. And that Toronto Montreal series is a great thing for hockey, for Canadian hockey. That doesn't happen often enough for the people to whom the sport means the most.
Preds are in Game 3, trailing 0-2 in their series. They host Carolina tonight at Bridgestone Arena here in Nashville. We'll give our thoughts on that game coming up in the Tennessee Power Hour a bit later. And a must-win game for them to get back into the series and try to even the series as they return home tonight and then again on Sunday afternoon. Tim Tebow, his jersey sales are crushing it for Jacksonville. He has the top 5 items right now sold at NFLshop.com. And what they're counting on the top 5 items, if you buy a women's jersey, if you buy a kid's jersey or a size, that counts as a separate item than your standard NFL jersey that you could purchase, and different color schemes, all that. They're making a ton off of these jerseys. And it's been reported, Phil Yates, as we expected, Tim Tebow, veteran minimum, 0 roster guarantee, where he has been brought in for the $900,000 veteran minimum salary, and 0 roster bump if he makes the roster.
So he's not making a dollar until week 1.
All the Kaepernick comparisons. If Colin Kaepernick would sign for that, he'd have an opportunity. But he will not do that. And that's what John Elway and the Denver Broncos said a couple years ago. So the veteran minimum salary, to me, takes that argument off the table completely.
Here's my question about the Tebow thing. This is number 85. All reports are that Gardner Minshew will be gone and that Tebow will move to 15. So there's a couple of questions here if you're buying a Tim Tebow item. First off, he might not make the team. So the idea that you want a Tim Tebow Jaguars jersey is bizarre to me. And that's on you. That's not on the Jaguars pulling a publicity stunt here. Secondly, it could be outdated by what's opening weekend, September 10th. If he's on the team, the number will be obsolete conceivably. So I think you're really making a dumb purchase. I understand your love of the guy, but he A, might not be on the team. B, if he's on the team, he's wearing a different number. So you're buying something that is quickly obsolete. I guess you don't care about that. I don't understand why you wouldn't.
Well, some are buying the 00 uniform with Tebow's name on it.
I don't get that.
Are people confused and thinking that their money goes to one of his charities or something? I don't understand the rush to get Tim Tebow Jacksonville gear for a guy who we say may not make the roster unless there was some charitable element to it. I understand, and I talked about this yesterday, the Christian fans of Tim Tebow wanting to support Tim Tebow because he is the most out front Christian athlete that we've seen in the last 20 years. I'm totally okay with that. But if it's, if part of the proceeds were going to his missionary efforts all over the world, I would understand it. But you're rushing to give the NFL money because of a publicity stunt? Possibly? Because Urban Meyer really likes Tim Tebow, the person? It's not because of Tim Tebow, the player.
Urban Meyer, who ain't much of a
And I get that
Christian
if you're a Florida
practice.
fan in North Florida,
right,
and you're also a Jags fan, you like Tim Tebow and you love him being on your team. I'm kind of with you on this, Paul. I don't understand the rush to go buy Tim Tebow gear unless there's some sort of charitable element to it.
Which there's not.
If you buy a Tim Tebow jersey right now, 20% of the proceeds are going to go to Tim Tebow's multitude of charities that he supports.
There's a part of it that's just maybe nostalgia is the wrong word, but the idea that you're getting the jersey while you can get it, so you can wear it as like the very small piece of NFL memorabilia that you would randomly wear out.
Like a collector's item.
Like remember the rush, and this is like to me this is way off the spectrum of Tebow, who's actually on a roster. But there is an element to this. Remember the rush to get Ron Mexico jerseys?
Yes.
With Michael Vick, and then they banned it from their site where you couldn't go and do it. Like, there's almost that same rush to buy the Tebow gear in the same mentality. Like, I've got to get this while it's available type thing.
Well, and maybe if it's like a collector's item type deal you're talking about for Tebow.
Keep him available after he gets cut. Keep him available. I mean, if people are going to
for every team.
Yeah, hell, put him on every team.
Well, I get
Denver one is nostalgic. The winning of that playoff game.
How many people doing this, though, are the autograph hound circuit? That wants to get items that's Tebow related because they know if they get Tim Tebow to sign it, they can then sell that for a lot of money.
One thing we do know,
it doesn't cost you
it's not like
$119.
Think about the size of the Jags fan base. It's not just Jaguars fans buying
I think if you're a true Jaguars fan, you're buying a Trevor Lawrence jersey right now. That's the guy to be excited about.
This is the Florida/Jags fan, or just the Florida fan that doesn't even like the Jags that's buying the NFL jersey of Tebow.
I think it's national.
I think it's a national. Yeah, I think maybe it's the collector. I think it's more of just the having a jersey to wear. We're not the jersey crowd, right? Like that. We're not wearing the uniforms, but there is a huge market for that.
Well, and I also think that there is an element of this that much like wearing a mask or not wearing a mask became a statement one way or the other, I think you wear a Tim Tebow jersey proudly with Jacksonville on it. That's a lot of people making a statement.
I don't see them with the Jets, or I don't see many Denver Broncos.
I think the 9-year layoff. I think the 9-year layoff and the debate that it has sparked,
reinvigorates
that I talked about yesterday, has made it something now. 9 years ago, it wasn't anything because he was a failed quarterback that wanted to compete and stay in there.
Yeah.
Tebow Mania was there, but our country's very different 9 years later in terms of all of these things.
What were Mets jerseys
that's
like?
my question. I think there was an initial burst, but I think how long did he play? 4 or 5 years? It wore off.
Do you guys not agree with me that now it's a bigger national discussion and it has fallen on different political lines with Tim Tebow in a lot of cases, and the whole discourse of everything now is different, even when it was then he was playing for the Mets AA team.
Yeah, NFL versus minor league baseball.
It's a huge difference. I'm trying to look at it from the football perspective, and I'm thinking, why in the hell would anyone want to buy a Tim Tebow jersey? Because the guy is not a very good football player anymore. And he had multiple chances to play tight end in the NFL, and he sucked. And now 9 years later, he's going to magically be a difference maker or be someone that deserves a roster spot over someone else on Jacksonville? I'm very skeptical of that being the case at this point. If you love and support Tim Tebow, I'm all for that. I like Tim Tebow, the guy. But I think a lot of this is, I love Tim Tebow. These people hate Tim Tebow and criticize him. I'm buying a Tim Tebow jersey to support what Tim Tebow stands for, regardless if it makes any football sense or not.
But this is comparable, frankly, to buying an Andrew Villart jersey. He's about the fourth tight end in
from a football standpoint, yes.
It's comparable to buying a Tommy Hudson jersey in Nashville.
Except no one knows who they are whatsoever.
But in terms of the football stature and the likelihood of making the team and all of those things. And nobody's buying those. You're buying it because he's a famous...
I disagree. I think he has a better shot of making the roster than Villart because of who he's playing for.
Because of his coach. Well, you got to perform.
He wouldn't on the Colts roster, but he's got a better chance of making the roster than Villart. Villart's there to take the lumps of the preseason.
You've got to perform. You've got to perform to some degree to make the roster, and we'll see if you can do that. But I mean, there's got to be a line, right? I mean, you can't carry him to carry him.
Well, and you can't
unless you carry him on the practice squad that could be its.
And Hunter, what you're saying, you can't talk about Tim Tebow with Jacksonville without talking about his relationship with Urban Meyer.
Yeah, that's the only reason
being a huge part of this. And I've been going back and forth with Tut on Twitter, who says to me, if being named Tim Tebow was such a great thing in the NFL, he would have had a shot with other coaches and other teams, which makes your point incorrect. The fact that it's his former college coach is the only reason, and the reason I stated. And then he says, not sure how you come to this conclusion. You're saying it's because his name is Tim Tebow. I'm not saying it's because his name is Tim Tebow. I'm saying because the name Tim Tebow leads to having the top 5 items sold at the NFL fan shop. That is something important. Tim Tebow is bigger than Andrew Villart or whoever you brought up. So yes, his name has something to do with this, but absolutely his connection to Urban Meyer is a big part of this and why he hasn't been signed by another team in the last 9 seasons. This is 9 seasons later. December of 2012, he took 1 snap with the Jets. And now 9 seasons later, he's trying to make it with Jacksonville. So my point is, this guy said, well, he hasn't been given any other opportunities that no one else. Yes, he has. Guys who leave the league that were drafted in the first round as a quarterback that were bust as a quarterback typically don't get multiple chances to play tight end in the league,
Smith.
Which he got. He got multiple chances to stick on with a team as a tight end in the beginning. He leaves for 9 years. Then he gets the opportunity with Urban Meyer. Is it because Urban Meyer knows him and loves him and coached him? Yes.
Absolutely.
But no one else is getting that opportunity. That's my point.
I think it's important to note that Tebow, correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, reached out about a tryout opportunity and has signed for the veteran minimum with no bonus structure here. After the tryout, which the tryout was reported the morning of the NFL draft. And then here we are where he's officially signed at the end of May.
And Meyer said there were 2 tryouts. They asked him to go work on some stuff and come back, and he did.
So Rex Ryan was recently on ESPN, and we have some quotes where he was on SportsCenter, I believe. It may have been NFL Live. This is from Rex Ryan, former Jets head coach. I look at it this way. As a guy who was part of this thing, we brought him into New York. I brought him in to be a personal protector on the punt team. By the way, we were successful on 6 fake punts with Tim Tebow. I thought he could run some wildcat-type offense, and like Mike Pettin and I used to say, that's the best throwing fullback in the league. I think we're going to get that here with Urban Meyer. He's not an NFL passer. We understand that. But Urban is trying to set a culture. And one thing, this guy is amazing off the field. His work ethic, his passion in the weight room, all of that stuff is a real positive for your football team. And he finishes up. At the end of the day, this guy may have some value in short yardage situations running direct snap runs. And he goes on to discuss the punts and the special teams aspect of what they did in New York. That's from his perspective of what he thought, and this is a couple of weeks old now, this quote, what he thought of the story of Urban Meyer signing Tim Tebow in Jacksonville.
I mean, I get what he's saying. You know who's good with direct snap runs? Laviska Shenault. You know who's good with the direct snap runs based on what they're working on? Travis Etienne.
What? Right, and he's also changing positions to wide receiver.
He's not outright changing the wide receiver. From what I've read, they're trying to make him a multi-dimensional, can do everything from running back and can line up at wide receiver. He's not going to be, from what I've read, in the wide receiver room. He's going to be a wide receiver that can do everything like some of a running back who can do everything like some of the best running backs in the league is what they're hoping for.
And they've referred to him as the third down back.
Right. Third down back who can do all those things, maybe on first down. But, I don't know. Is that enough impetus to create this whole thing for a few direct snaps when you've got Laviska Shenault, who was doing that last year for them pretty effectively? We saw it.
Well, to me, that backs up, that furthers my belief that the dude's going to be on a practice squad. Because you call him up. And I'm basing this off of last year's practice squad rules, where you're allowed to call up 2 members from your practice squad 24 hours before kickoff.
And we don't know
yet that on a Saturday.
We don't know yet if that's held over.
We don't know. Yeah, and that's why I'm saying I don't know if we have the 16-man practice squad with the 4 vets
call-ups.
and all these different call-ups prior to the game, because that was all in structure for COVID and COVID help if you had a player or two on the road or at home that had a positive COVID test or was in COVID protocol. So I don't know how all that's set up for 2021. No one really does, except for those behind the scenes at the NFL offices making the rules and structure. But I guess my point is, if that is the line of thinking where you're going to have a wrinkle or two for a fake punt situation or whatever, and then you keep him in your locker room for everything else that we've discussed that we say is not worthy of, the 90th man on the team, that's why I see him on a practice squad. Because you keep him around.
And I think the practice squad thing, I think the best thing to do would be to keep it in some form, but probably narrow it. Maybe not 16, maybe not 2 call-ups, but some
the overall
variance
rule.
of it.
Yeah.
Right.
I would still have to really, it would have to be a great sales pitch from Urban Meyer in convincing me that from a football standpoint, there aren't better options, not just out there, but on your roster to direct snap the ball to than a 33-year-old guy who hasn't played organized football in 9 years. He is a big, tough dude who runs hard, who is not fast. He can't throw. I mean, come on. Like, I understand what Rex Ryan is saying years ago, but I bet, who's the guy again? The fourth tight end that's younger you could direct snap the ball to, and he could do the same thing Tim Tebow could with it. Hire the guy to be a team chaplain. Hire the guy to be an assistant coach if he's so big on culture. You can't convince me this is anything other than a gimmick. There's no football sense to this. And Urban Meyer, if he wants to talk about it, I thought Rex Ryan did a good job with the sales pitch of what they were doing with the Jets and what Urban Meyer may be thinking. All of that sounds great.
Yeah.
But you're telling me you can't come up with a better option to do some of those things with than Tim Tebow now?
The salary also indicates that there's no guarantee. Like, those that are just convinced that he's making Urban's roster, there's no injury split with the $920,000 minimum, and there's no roster bonus. There's no date on the calendar if he makes it to camp. There's nothing.
Straight minimum.
So because of that, you cut him loose, and they don't owe him a dime. So that's
no, it's guaranteed opening day.
That's
so
what I'm
the
saying.
900 guarantees.
That's why you cut him loose in camp, and there's nothing guaranteed other than you give this guy an opportunity to be around your club in camp.
And you could cut him for opening day, bring him back for week 2, and pay him week to week.
on a weekly.
And then be off the hook anytime he's not on the roster.
It's all intriguing. The intriguing part, I don't think we're surprised by the jersey sales, but the sprint to get. Imagine this dude.
I'm surprised it's selling as well as it is. I am surprised.
Imagine Tim Tebow doing this. Like we're not far removed from Urban Meyer being mentioned as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. Imagine Tim Tebow doing this for America's team, the global brand, the most valuable sports team in the world, the Dallas Cowboys, and what that name on that jersey would bring in jersey sales. Had they, and again, I'm prefacing this by saying, if Urban Meyer is the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, because he would have done the same thing there or anywhere.
I mean, it's a stunt, and I'm trying to get less annoyed by it being a stunt. Identify and let go.
Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't really bother me. I just want people to understand what it is.
Yeah, I
just don't want people to argue.
A lot of people don't.
They're going to sell a ton of jerseys. Tim Tebow's a great dude. Urban Meyer loves him. I don't like Urban Meyer, which is part of my dislike of this whole story. It's not anything about Tim Tebow, but it's a stunt. And if you want Tim Tebow around your organization, I wholeheartedly endorse that move by Urban Meyer. It makes a ton of sense to want Tim Tebow a part of your team. But when you sign him to be a tight end at 33, 9 years removed from playing in the NFL, it is a stunt. If you hired him to be a better version of Jack Easterby, to be some sort of team advisor, consultant, makes a ton of sense. Hire him to be a quarterback's coach even. Makes a lot more sense than hiring him to play tight end, where he twice failed. 2 or 3 times maybe with different teams earlier in his career. None of that to me makes sense. And when people try to twist themselves in knots to argue that it does, that's what bothers me more than anything.
I just do think a lot of fans underestimate now you've got a clean slate locker room, right, with new guys coming in. And I think a lot of people underestimate the effect of the attention and the TV cameras and everything focusing so much on a 4th/5th string tight end.
I think you're right.
In the locker room.
With the press release even yesterday when
with
they
the press release where they put out some rookie free agents with name and position and size and weight, and then they have this with all the comments and everything. He's going to be treated very differently. And that requires a ton of management.
Yes.
And that ton of management is effort and energy that's expended on something that other teams don't have to expend anything on. They're expending nothing on their 4th or 5th string tight end.
Coming up, more on this. Plus, we'll get into Julio Jones. We have some odds on his landing spot if Atlanta does, in fact, decide to trade him. Reports are they would really like to. But because we have the Vols in the majority of today's Tennessee Power Hour, we will give you the idea of Julio Jones in a Titans uniform and how that would have to actually work with their current salary cap structure. And Paul, I believe you have Tannehill's numbers for a restructure. In fact, if that were to take place.
It's not complicated. That's not complicated. It's not even new money.
Also not complicated, but new money. Renters Warehouse can get you money in your pocket, Chad Withrow.
It's been an uncertain year and a half, right? Uncertain times also. And you want to get that rent money guaranteed if you own a rental property. That's the opportunity they're going to give you right now at Renters Warehouse. If you own a rental property and need cash, if you're considering updating your rental property or investing in a larger portfolio, you can get the most out of your real estate investment by receiving a full year of rent paid up front. That's up to a year of rent payments in your pocket right now. By giving your money up front, Renters Warehouse helps minimize risk and provides financial flexibility so you can build long-term wealth. The upfront rent program is available for a limited time right now. All you need to do is call Renters Warehouse Nashville. The phone number, you can see it if you're watching on your screen, 615-398-9550, or visit rwnashville.com. The website, very important to see if you qualify. Go to rwnashville.com. Renters Warehouse, do it the Renters Warehouse way and get tomorrow's rent today.
We'll talk Julio Jones. And what did Don Mattingly say about all these no-hitters across Major League Baseball? That's next on OutKick 360.
Most tenants are good people who play by the rules. But sometimes you can get one who's a little deadline challenged. In other words, they're late with the rent. When this happens, you can either spend the precious hours you have left on Earth calling, texting, and emailing them, or you can turn over your property management to Renters Warehouse. Because when we say we'll collect the rent, we'll collect the rent. Need a pen?
OutKick 360 across the OutKick network and on the OutKick 360 YouTube channel. Effective on Monday, we will be live streaming exclusively on YouTube through the OutKick 360 channel. So if you're currently streaming the show live through OutKick's channel, at the top bar, search out OutKick 360 channel and hit that subscribe button, hit that bell. so that you're alerted when we go live on Monday at noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central. Again, that starts on Monday for OutKick 360 content on YouTube. Quick clarification. Just to be fair to the story, you can go to NFLshop.com, and there is a option to ship the jersey after a number is finalized by the team for Tim Tebow.
There's also, according to UW, at Fanatics, you can get jersey insurance. If your purchase gets cut or traded, they'll swap out your jersey for a player that makes the roster.
There you go.
According to me, there's also an option where you can just wait. And you can order a jersey after he's on the roster and after he has a number. And you don't have to rely on Fanatics or NFL.com to do any of this for you while giving them money in May for something that's going to happen in September. And I'm not the most fiscally sound guy. I buy things that I want when I want them. I'm fortunate enough to be able to do that. But even I, in my wanting, wouldn't pay now for something I can't have until September when I could just as easily pay for it in September if I'm getting it in September. So why should they have my money now if I can't have it until September when I could just as easily pay for it in September?
One more thing on this Tim Tebow part of this before we move on. And this is a tweet that caught my eye from OutKick's fearless leader, Clay Travis, that I want to address. And the tweet says, the Raiders, Dolphins, and Washington are all reportedly still interested in trading for Deshaun Watson, despite 22 women accusing him of sexual assault. Yet Tebow trying out as tight end is controversial. Just stop. Talent is all that matters in the NFL.
Swing.
I'll agree with Clay on the talent is all that matters in the NFL, or is what should matter in the NFL. And for that reason, teams being interested in Deshaun Watson makes perfect sense for me. Because you could be accused of murder, and if you can sling it like Deshaun Watson, somebody's going to be interested if you get cleared of that charge or if the league clears you of that charge. But tying in Tim Tebow to this makes no sense, because if talent's all that matters, I can give you about 300 names pretty quickly that make a hell of a lot more sense for a fourth or fifth tight end that's younger, that's played the position more, that's more capable of playing it than Tim Tebow. So no, Clay, talent isn't all that matters with Tim Tebow. Now, I'll agree with you, the controversy surrounding it is overblown to a big extent, and I think shows a lot about the people criticizing Tim Tebow, maybe a lot more than it does about Tim Tebow in a lot of instances. And I told you the reason why yesterday, that a lot of people, they won't admit it, but they don't like Tim Tebow. It's because the people who support Tim Tebow, they don't like, and they're never going to tell you that. But to say that talent's all that matters in the NFL, it should be that way. But when it comes to Tim Tebow, it's not.
I'm a merit guy. Tim Tebow doesn't have merit right now. And Deshaun Watson's got playing merit. Deshaun Watson's got much bigger things going on that eliminate him right now from being qualified to play for any team.
I'll also say,
He's still on a roster.
Clay was the first person that I've ever heard refer to Deshaun Watson as the Bill Cosby, possibly, allegedly the Bill Cosby of the NFL. That's the first time I've heard that.
But Deshaun Watson's on the Texans roster because of his talent.
Right. But
the 90th man on the Texans roster would no longer be the 90th man on the Texans roster if this were going on.
Agree. But he's not going to set foot on a field
But again,
on opening day.
this goes back to talent is what matters.
Right.
And Deshaun Watson's one of the 5 to 10 best quarterbacks in the NFL.
Maybe
So
higher.
He's going to be given every
Top 5.
benefit of the doubt.
For sure. Julio Jones among, what would we say, top 15 wide receivers right now?
Yeah.
Am I doing a disservice by putting him that low?
Well, the only reason you put him that low is because he's
Injuries.
coming off an injury season.
So what? My first thing is, what would it take for a team to trade for him? The Colts. I brought this up with McLean yesterday. The Colts have traded away some future picks. So how much capital do they want to trade away to acquire him? Other teams will see more value in him for how close they are, and needing that veteran presence in the wide receiver room paired with a young, faster receiver. And I brought up the Colts because I think it makes a lot of sense for Indy, just on paper.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense for a lot of teams. But according to The Athletic, the Falcons do, in fact, want to trade Julio Jones.
Yeah, Jeff Schultz is a very insider Falcons guy, so him giving this air is significant.
He's a big Atlanta guy, period.
Yeah.
He's a long-time Atlanta guy who knows a lot.
Julio Jones is not as expensive, I don't think, as most fans think.
Yeah.
Because the cap number is big. And that's why there's pressure on Atlanta here to maybe let some air out of the valve. Because, look, his value and his cap number kind of go hand in hand. If the Falcons will pay a bigger portion of this to offload him, then what they could get in return goes up. These two things go hand in hand, right?
They have no flexibility with their cap right now. According to Albert Breer, they have $357,000 available under the cap. Like the Titans have the 7th worst cap room right now based on flexibility, and according to Breer, they're just under $4 million, like 3.5 to 3.7. The Falcons have less than $400,000.
The preeminent question really with them cap-wise is why won't they do something with Grady Jarrett, who's their other biggest cap concern and who looks to be a part of their long-term future. Extend Grady Jarrett, you get his cap number down this year, and that offers you some relief there. It's hard for a lot of us, me included, and I mentioned this the other day, I wish I knew who wrote the initial tweet, to say you've got 2 generational talents potentially, if Kyle Pitts is what everybody thinks Kyle Pitts is, and say, look, my God, we've got Kyle Pitts lined up next to Julio Jones over there, as opposed to we've got Kyle Pitts lined up to salary cap relief over there. You know, and I've kept saying that the Falcons have good wide receivers. Well, Calvin Ridley's an excellent wide receiver. But their second best wide receiver last year, do you know who it was?
A tight end?
It was Russell Gage. I don't know. He doesn't pop to mind. He had good numbers. He had 109 targets, 72 catches, 786 yards, 4 touchdowns. A good wide receiver. But you're not giving up Julio Jones because you've got Russell Gage.
Well, Russell Gage's numbers are in
Hayden
part...
Hurst was third.
Russell Gage's numbers are in part because Julio Jones is missing 7 games last year.
Right.
So if you're anticipating that Julio Jones is going to miss more time because that's just we're seeing the back end of his career, you get value for him and you get cap relief at the same time.
You're bumping him to wide receiver 2. They've got Blake Christensen. They've got Cordarrelle Patterson. Who is more of a special teamer. Everybody tries to do something with him at receiver and doesn't get as much as they want. Frank Darby's a rookie, right? I'm sorry, they have DJ Moore. So there's your bigger answer, right? Terrence Marshall. So they do have Robbie Anderson. No, sorry. I'm sorry. I'm reading a totally wrong line. My bad. Start over. Frank Darby is their next best guy after that, a rookie. Forget DJ Moore. I slipped into the Carolina line. So they're not as stacked at wide receiver as you would think. They'd be better off with Julio Jones for sure. The trade market is limited because of the money and because teams have addressed wide receiver. I've got odds here. You want to hear who the favorites are to land him if he's traded?
So when we discussed this a week ago, Baltimore was number 1 in the odds. Are they still number 1?
Baltimore is number 1, plus 275. 49ers second, plus 300. Patriots plus 450. Patriots have had a go-forward offseason. That would be a hell of a move there. I don't know if your quarterbacking dictates Julio Jones at this stage, though he's going to make your quarterback better. Chargers plus 600. They've got a lot of money in Keenan Allen already.
Well, Baltimore
and the Titans tied at plus 600 with the
Baltimore
Chargers.
tried to sign T.Y. Hilton, and T.Y. Hilton decided to stay in Indy because of the quarterback situation.
Julio Jones is not going to be happy to be traded to Baltimore.
I wouldn't think so. No.
He'd be happy to go to the 49ers,
but Baltimore,
probably.
They're trying to get Lamar Jackson some semblance of a number 1 wideout. They have Hollywood Brown, who's a number 2. He puts up number 1 numbers sometimes, but nothing consistent. They're trying to find that true number 1 outlet, and that's why they're number 1 in the Vegas odds.
They signed Sammy Watkins, was the one guy they did get to come to them, which is an upgrade, but it's not the level of upgrade they were looking for that they got turned down by. So the Colts are the next team behind Ravens, 49ers, Patriots, Chargers, and Titans the same. Colts plus 700. Packers, Eagles, Bills, Giants, Cowboys also on the list. This would be a huge move in Tennessee because Tennessee lost Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith and has not made a significant move. Josh Reynolds caught the third most passes with the Rams. The Rams throw a lot more than the Titans do, though. So for him to have that many more catches there is part volume, I think. Is he a 2? I don't know. Is he a 3?
Right now, he's got to be.
Right now, he's got to be a 2. I think, if Josh Reynolds
You're asking just overall, is he a 2?
Josh Reynolds as a 3, if Julio Jones is a 2, you're perfectly happy with this offense. And that's still not accounting for Jonnu Smith having left, who's a very good pass-catching receiver who's gone on to the Patriots. He had to block a lot last year after Taylor Lewan got hurt in Tennessee, but a very effective pass-receiving tight end. Tennessee lost 2 big pieces of a very good passing offense that supplemented Derrick Henry and don't have guaranteed replacements by any means for those guys. Plus, A.J. Brown, not that this is a factor, grew up loving Julio Jones.
Well, and Derrick Henry has even said he would love to see.
Derrick Henry's campaigning.
I mean, it makes sense. Julio
Jones makes sense for a lot of teams. So I don't. We can go down the list, but he'd be great as a Titan for what they need right now.
What would it take, Paul, for a restructure of Ryan Tannehill to make some room? Because as we mentioned, the Titans are among the 10 worst in salary cap space right now, along with the Bills and Packers, who are also listed on this list from Las Vegas.
I don't understand the Titans' reluctance to restructure. They could create $20.617 million with a restructure of Ryan Tannehill's contract. And I've reported this from a very strong source at the NFLPA that it's not an immediate check that's written. Generally, it's spread out the same, it's accounted differently, and this money is already with the NFL, in escrow with the NFL. You have to put the money that needs to be accounted for April 1st, that's guaranteed for this coming year, April 1st away. So Ryan Tannehill's money is already, quote unquote, paid by the Titans. It's not in Ryan Tannehill's pocket, but it's in an account with the NFL. So if you're shifting around the accounting of that money, it doesn't matter.
Is there
it's some kind of precedent maybe because the only guy that John Robinson's restructured is Kevin Byard, the safety.
Is there a kick the can down the road mentality with it, though, where you're putting off a big salary cap hit on your quarterback? Much like we saw with the Saints and Drew Brees, where they kept restructuring. And
yes,
and as of this year, they have like $300,000. They're number one. They're worse than the Falcons are right now in cap space.
Accounting wise, this pushes some
is that
cap
the one concern?
Into the future. That would be the one concern. But Ryan Tannehill is certainly going to be here for the life of his contract in Nashville, and I could see you having some concern with next year's cap. But at some point you have to go for it. Next year's not expected to go up significantly, but the year after is expected to really go up significantly. Right? Next year's still kind of a COVID payoff.
But it's going to be better than what it is right now next year.
And the Titans are a team that's in a window right now. The Titans
I agree.
span really is as long as Derrick Henry's span. And I know people in Nashville think that Derrick Henry, because he's a Superman type, is going to last forever. He's not. We've seen running backs, and Derrick Henry's one of the best ones with this durability and superhumanness. But he's getting 300-plus touches a year. At some point, he's going to hit a wall. Titans are going to go and be a good football team as long as Derrick Henry's a good football player. That's going to run out at some time over the next 3 years, you'd have to guess. They got to go do some things during those 3 years. Julio Jones helps them do that.
Coming up, Don Mattingly and his comments on the current game that we're seeing in Major League Baseball. We're already 6 no-hitters pitched by May 19th. The record in the modern era is 7. Mattingly's take next on OutKick 360.
But what about their house?
Even in a good market, you should think twice before selling. The smarter financial decision might be renting instead, especially when you hire the professional landlords at Renters Warehouse. Don't sell out, cash in. Visit renterswarehouse.com right now and find out how much your house could rent for.
A rental price analysis is totally free. So what have you got to lose? I'll take that guitar.
OutKick 360. Glad you're with us, and we hope you'll join us on the OutKick 360 YouTube channel. That is where we will be broadcasting exclusively on YouTube starting on Monday. OutKick 360 channel is what you search on YouTube. Subscribe, hit that alert button, ring that bell so that every time we go live, which is weekdays, noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central, and when we post new content, which is all the time, thanks to the great crew with Lance Lee, Jacob Swanson, David Reed, Becca Risley, maybe even Sleepy Danny. Maybe he does some things when he wakes up in about an hour and a half from now. You can find all that content at YouTube by searching out the OutKick 360 channel. Don Mattingly says sometimes the game is unwatchable. In discussing the no-hitters and the streak that we've been on, where we've seen the Mariners. The Mariners are certainly unwatchable. Yes. They've been no-hit twice in the last, 3 weeks? Yep. Maybe less than that. And we've already seen 6 no-hitters before June even arrives.
It's bad. And, I mean, we talked about a couple of these things. I know you guys had a good conversation about the no-hitters yesterday when I was out. They did not think through what they did with the baseball because deadening the baseball a little bit is turning some home runs, which are good, at least for the offense, into warning track outs, which is another bad thing that results in no offense. Guys aren't changing the way they swing to now hit more effective ground balls. There's a contact problem in baseball. There's a ball in play problem in baseball. Now, on the no-hitter thing, look, it's bad that there are so many. It's still an event. I mean, there are too many. It's an event. It's too easy. It's still an event. If your team's throwing one, you're flipping over.
So how many 3 or 4 hit games have we seen? That, to me, is the issue.
That's up too.
Half innings with no hits. I read an article about it at the Ringer yesterday. Half innings with no hits are way up. 1, 2, 3 innings. 6 innings with no hits, 7 innings with no hits, up.
Well, I think that's what Mattingly is addressing. He's like, sometimes the game's unwatchable because we've reached a point where he's being asked about the no-hitters and the fact that we've seen 6. The no-hitters are fine because pitchers are having a great game and there's a storyline behind it. I think the issue that he's having and that a lot of baseball fans or the casual fan in general would have right now is what he says, where he says, it's been coming and it's been building, and now we're at a point where I think it's getting much more attention because it's just a game that sometimes is unwatchable. You see guys you talk to and you don't even like watching the games because there's nothing that goes on in them. He's not referring to the no-hitters being unwatchable because the no-hitters are boring. He's referring to, and I get it, he's talking about those 3 or 4 hit games where there's nothing going on and one run is being scored and you got the 2-1 final or whatever. It's just a grind.
Clayton Kershaw said much the same thing. He said, congratulations to Kluber and to whoever the other one was most recently. Good for them, and they're good pitchers, and they deserve these things.
The guy in Detroit.
But overall, this is trending in a bad way for the game. Now, Clayton Kershaw is a fan of good pitching, obviously, and he's on the side of the pitcher.
Yeah.
And he's saying it. When a premier pitcher is saying this is going in a bad direction and the game is suffering, that's
great illustration last night in the Braves-Pirates game of this. So I'm listening to Chip Carey on the call, and he's describing the Pirates. This young, plucky, scrappy group that takes a pitch and looks at where the fielders are and punches it the opposite way against the shift and hits line drives up the middle to get on base. And I'm thinking the whole time, oh, you mean baseball? You mean they actually know how to hit? Like, this is a team that knows how to hit. And my team, the Atlanta Braves, doesn't know how to hit because all they do is swing for the fences. And the perfect example is they get to extra innings. The Braves bring in scrub Jacob Webb, who promptly gives up 3 consecutive hits. All different ways. Opposite field line drive, shot up the middle, bloop shot to right on a curveball that gets home for a base hit. You're seeing this complexity of how you can get on base, which is amazing. The Atlanta Braves come up. Freddie Freeman, reigning NL MVP, can't do anything but swing for the fences. Promptly pops out. Marcell Ozuna, a guy who looks like an overpaid scrub this year, promptly pops out. Shocked on the previous at-bat when he tries to watch a home run go out that's caught at the warning track, that it wasn't gone. And then Ozzie Albies pops up to end the game. Strands runner on, game over when they start with a runner on second base. This is the problem, not just with the Braves, but you're seeing it across baseball. Guys don't know how to hit anymore. We need Tony Gwynn. We need Ted Williams. We need someone, Don Mattingly. We need someone who can instruct young players that it's not all about hitting a home run. When you come up, it can be about getting on base, because when you put the ball in play and can get on base, crazy things can happen, like scoring runs or breaking up a no-hitter. That can happen when you get on base also.
I agree with you, absolutely. But I also think the pitching has gotten so good, and it is harder than ever to make contact and to make good contact. Are guys swinging for the fences too much? Yes. And is that set hitting back? Absolutely. But you look at the science of pitching now and you read articles about spin rates and all of this stuff that they're breaking down in the lab, and pitching is so good right now. They've got to come up with something. And I don't want drastic. I don't want them to move the mound. Maybe lower the mound. I don't know what. I don't want crazy, but I want changes. They have made changes in favor of hitting before. They have to make changes now in favor of hitting again. This guy at the Ringer who I read, he said, and he's bummed out by all the no-hitters and the favorable pitching, he wants it to be terrible this year, the hitting, in so that the league has no choice but to implement serious changes that help with contact. Smaller strike zone, restrictions. I think one of the big things is restrictions on the number of pitchers. I understand you have to now face 3 batters if you come in that doesn't go into the next inning. That's good. Make a starter, and you can't do this by rule, but you can do it by not having 13 pitchers on your staff. Jeff Passan is a big proponent of this. Make the staff smaller and make a starter then have to stay in the game to face a guy a third time, so that a batter has a chance to get a read on a guy and he doesn't have a new pitcher every time he's up to bat who's got some otherworldly slider that he hasn't seen before. So I can see conceivably 12 or 13 pitches from the same guy and get a read on him, instead of, I kind of have a feel for that guy and he's gone.
It starts,
and he's not going to be seen again for 5 days.
This is not a Major League Baseball rules issue. This starts with batters understanding hitting, because I know they're capable of it. I see plenty of times that third strike, that punch-out strike is the hardest one to get when guys shorten their swing, they're more defensive at the plate, and they're fouling everything off, fouling good pitches off. I saw Dansby Swanson last night foul pitches off. Finally, gets a fastball, he times up and hits a home run. I know guys can do it. Too often you see guys that are swinging the same way 3 straight times. They come
I agree with you on
and
that.
are completely fooled, but I really think the first adjustment, and some of these rule changes could be good for the game. I'm not disagreeing with you. But the first step is batters understanding hitting more and actually going out and implementing it and not looking foolish so often at the plate.
I want that. But I think hand in hand with that, you got to acknowledge, like if you follow at Pitching Ninja, every night he's isolating pitches that are just unhittable. This ridiculous stuff that guys have. You've got pitchers throwing it. The Yankees have pitchers throwing it. It's not, Means is throwing it. This stuff's unhittable. So how do you counter the unhittable stuff, even if the batters are doing what you ask? There's got to be some leveling of it. I don't know how it happens.
We at least we are seeing finals from last night. 19-4, 10-1.
That's good.
8-4, 5-2. 6-4 was the Braves game. 8-7 final. 3-2 final between the Dodgers and Diamondbacks. So it's not like everything's 2-0 Yankees,
Like the
over the
Yankees
Rangers.
the last 2 nights have been.
But we have seen 6 no-hitters by May 19th at the same time.
Here's one other thing I'll say about
Pardon the pun, it's hit or miss.
Let's go back and look at the number of 9-0 this year.
I know, yeah.
Or 7-0.
Get that
There's a
one
lot
good
of
pitcher.
10-1s that I've seen.
Sure. When the
this year
Orioles
also.
play, you're going to see that.
There's 2 other things I'll
You're
say
right.
about baseball. A lot of people, and we talk about this time and time again, it still does very well in the hometown market on a weeknight. You know, it's the top thing that's watched unless your team also is in the NBA playoffs or the NHL playoffs. If you're in Philadelphia, you're watching the Phillies for the most part. The city is. And I think betting is really helping. I mean, all 3 of us are pretty plugged into our teams, but we're also looking a little bit at I'm playing these K props, and I'm paying attention to baseball, other baseball outside of my team's baseball, in a way that I typically don't, because there's nightly stuff I'm interested in based on FanDuel. I think betting is helping baseball.
We will have the FanDuel Parlay coming up for the 360 weekend
Paul
parlay.
saw that.
Paul's Parlay, that's coming up.
I'm excited.
But when we return, the Tennessee Power Hour will kick off with the Volquest Power Hour on Fridays. Brent Hubbs and Austin Price with the very latest from the Hill in Knoxville. All things Tennessee Athletics next on OutKick 360. Hang with us.
There's money in your house. But if you're thinking of selling instead of renting, you might be missing it. Even in a hot housing market, selling your home can leave money on the table, while renting can give you a rich blend of benefits. Not just cold hard cash, but steady, reliable cash flow. When it comes to selling versus renting your home, renting can make a lot more sense.
Find out how much your home will rent for.
OutKick 360, the final hour on this Friday means it's time for the Volquest Power Hour. And alongside Chad Withrow and Paul Koharski, I'm Jonathan Hutton. We say hello to Brent Hubbs and Austin Price of Volquest.com, who joins us from Knoxville. Gentlemen, hope you're doing well as we head into yet another great weekend.
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
We are excellent. Austin's been hitting the links. I highly recommend, if you're not friends with Austin on Facebook, that you hit him up so you can see all these videos. Brent, does he send you the private videos from the golf courses that he plays, much like he would send out and post on his Facebook page?
No. I mean, I've got him blocked on some of that stuff anyway. But no, the only one I get is I get the Masters one every week during the Masters, and then randomly, arbitrarily, he might just throw that one my way because he took me to Augusta. He let me see the golf course, so he wants to remind me that he gave me the tour, gave me all the backstories, and by the way, he's played the golf course.
I hadn't heard about that.
Always key playing the golf course.
But we have heard about when you dropped ice on the ground at Augusta. I would like to add. I would definitely like to add that listening to your all's conversation before the break, Major League Baseball just needs to do one thing. They just got to go and get that Mount Juliet A's team. The pitcher I hear on that team gets lit up like a Christmas tree during the week and on the weekend. So they get that pitcher on that coach pitch Mount Juliet A's team.
Chad, your thoughts?
You let me go out there on a Major League Baseball mound, and your hitting woes are completely cured in one outing right there. I'm going to throw gasoline
You're
on that
definitely
fire.
no Sonny Gray pitching for the A's.
If Major League Baseball wants an end to their offensive woes, I'm your pitcher. You sign me up for a team, and those offensive woes will go away. Guys, I want to start with basketball, surprisingly enough, today, because big news coming down right as we were on air today. Tennessee going to play Villanova next year in this Mohegan Sun Classic. Rick Barnes versus Jay Wright, and you've got Purdue and North Carolina on the other side of that little round-robin tournament. So Tennessee will play one of those teams as well. It's amazing to me, and Brent, we'll start with you on this one, how Tennessee has really become a national draw under Rick Barnes, that this is a national college basketball story today, that people are excited to watch these two programs play each other next year, and it's really a testament to what he's done with the program.
Yeah, two things. One, it's a testament to what he's put together from a roster standpoint and the talent he's putting on the floor and the expectations he's created. The other thing, too, is it's a testament to the relationships that Rick Barnes has and his ability to get into these tournaments. You go back and think about it. They played Villanova and Purdue, I think, in the Bahamas or somewhere like that when they were just kind of building this thing up. They have been able to get into these types of tournaments because of Rick Barnes' relationship with people. The difference now is they're expected to win these types of tournaments, or at least be one of the best teams in this tournament because of the roster he's assembled. I think there's two things there, and it's a tip of the hat to Rick Barnes for A, being who he is, and B, what his staff has put together from a roster.
Brent Hubbs and Austin Price with us from Volquest.com. Guys, how do you think the average fan feels about the job Josh Heupel's done since he's been on the job? Like, what's fair based on the reaction that you've heard and read through mailbags, through posts at Volquest, reading the general's quarters, which I know can get messy no matter what time of year and no matter the coach. But I'm comparing this to other regimes at the start. How would you describe it? What's fair?
I think it's a wait-and-see approach. I think that there are certain fans that are obviously very optimistic just with the additions in the transfer portal and the fact that, they're going to be, looking to throw the ball vertically and score points and all that stuff. But I think, Tennessee fans as a whole, they're a bit jaded right now. I mean, they've had a reason to be jaded for the last decade, but they've kind of hung in there and they've hung in there. But I think this offseason with all the change and moving parts really kind of took a toll on them. So I think that they're optimistic and hopeful, but they're also taking a wait-and-see approach, because they've kind of been there, done that with, a new coach and getting too excited too soon. So, I think most of it is kind of just like, I like this guy. He seems like he's got something about him, but I'm going to take that wait and see approach. What do you think, Brent?
Well, I think you're exactly right, and I would throw in this. I think that there's a little more cautious optimism right now than there was 6 or 8 weeks ago. Austin, you talked about it on this show a month and a half ago, whenever it was, about how Tennessee didn't have a whole lot of juice, didn't really have anything going on in recruiting. They couldn't get a commit. And then when you look at what they've gotten done, commitments and transfer portal, I think there's some people that are trying to temper their expectations and going, let's wait and see. But they've done some things here that we like. But I think because of the past history with Tennessee, I think there is more wait and see with Josh Heupel than there was with Butch Jones or Derek Dooley or Lane Kiffin and that type of thing. There's always hey, we like this guy better because he's the opposite of the previous guy. And that's a given anytime you hire a coach, because nobody goes out and hires the same guy that they just fired. They hire a different personality, different philosophy. So you have that natural thing built in. But I think there's a little bit more, or a little bit of an increased optimism on May the 21st than there was on March 21st because of what they've been able to get done, what they've been able to get done in the transfer world.
Well, let's take a look at that transfer world and that transfer portal. And much like the University of Tennessee's roster was very good to Oklahoma, the University of Michigan's roster has been a fertile recruiting territory for Tennessee. The latest news comes down yesterday with the linebacker transferring to Tennessee. What do you guys think about this addition, and what is the upside for a player like this who I know only played in one game for the Wolverines, but he transfers in only playing the 1 year as a true freshman at Michigan?
Well, the upside is he's got a lot of athleticism, and for a team that's void of pass rushers, the potential to have a guy that can get off the edge in a hurry is something that I think is exciting to this coaching staff. They've I think really been excited about him as they've worked on him since he's went into portal, and they were able to get that done. Brian Jean-Marie, really good relationship there, both from Brooklyn, and William Mohan, or as he goes by Apache, as his nickname. I think is a guy that brings energy. And you look at that linebacker room, you've already got Jeremy Banks. He's an energy guy. You add someone who's more going to be on the outside overall, and William Mohan, he's going to bring energy along with Roman Harrison. It just added depth at a position of need, because you can never have too many pass rushers, Brent. You got to be able to get to the quarterback. And I know they're hopeful that because he has 4 years of eligibility remaining, that, hey, this is a guy that can help us for the next several years.
Well, I'm all in on a guy with a nickname Apache just because it's a cool nickname to have. So I'm in there. But I think the biggest thing, when you look at what Tennessee's done in the transfer portal recently, two things stand out to me. One, everybody's got multiple years of eligibility left with the last 2 or 3 guys that they've taken. The kid, the Terry kid from Kansas, the Haddon kid from Auburn, and then now Mohan. The other thing, too, with all 3 of those guys, they have prior relationships with the Tennessee coaching staff, okay? Mohan played for Tennessee's linebackers coach for a year at Michigan, knows him. They're from the same area. Willie Martinez recruited the Auburn transfer along with Josh Heupel. They got him on an official visit. They know what that kid's about. Rodney Garner recruited Terry when he was at Auburn to a degree. So I think you're seeing 2 trends. One, transfers with multiple years of eligibility are a priority for Tennessee. And 2, as they establish their culture, they want to get guys that they are comfortable with on and off the field, and guys that they have relationships with, and we've seen that with their last 3 transfers.
And guys, you hit on some of those transfers you just did right there, Brent. I'm curious, though, in terms of guarded optimism with this team, how transformational are these transfers for Tennessee's defense? Are we looking at 3 or 4 possible new starters coming to the defense with this group? Or is this mostly a depth play when you look at some of these guys transferring in?
I mean, it's definitely depth, Brent, but I also think that, ultimately these are guys that can potentially win a starting job. DJ Terry can win a starting job. Jawan Mitchell is going to be expected to win a starting job as an inside linebacker. Mohan has potential, probably still a year away just from building his body and getting where they want him to be physically, but I think he's going to play. And then you add Haddon, who Brent, Tennessee's got some guys in the secondary, but they're not real deep there. So he could potentially, beat out somebody and start beside Alontae Taylor or someone else in the secondary.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the defensive linemen, they're in the rotation out of the gate, okay? Because you're going to play more guys and you're going to rotate guys. So whether they start or they don't start there, I think doesn't matter. I think those guys are going to play out of the gate. You mentioned Mitchell at linebacker, makes the most sense. The secondary thing's pretty interesting when you look at where they are. Yes, they need depth now, but the biggest concern for this program in the secondary is where they could be at a year from now after they lose Alontae Taylor, Kenneth George, Theo Jackson, Trayvon Flowers, guys like that. I mean, they have a chance to be pretty depleted back there in that secondary. So they're going to have some real help a year from now. And to do that, I think that you want to bring in some guys now. That's why they were interested in Haddon from Auburn, because even if he doesn't start this year, he should be ready to start a year from now when they're definitely going to need a ton of help back there.
Wondering about Kaidon Salter. Seemed like, he felt like he was going to be the next guy at quarterback. Got himself in some trouble. Wasn't a part of what went on in the offseason. Going to be a part now of the summer offseason. But in the meantime, Joe Milton is here, and other guys have passed him. What do you think about his status and his standing now?
Well, I think with Kaidon, it's you're playing so much catch up for him. I mean, Austin has said this, I think, on a couple of our podcasts, and it makes sense. It's you obviously he made a mistake. He shouldn't have done it, but the mistake is he cost himself a half a year of high school and spring practice. He would have certainly been better off staying in high school and going to the prom and enjoying, just doing nothing for a few months, because the whole plan was to come here, go through spring practice, get a leg up, give yourself a better chance to compete. And because of his decisions, he took himself out of that equation. So he is starting brand new. And so, he's coming in with the least experience of anybody in the quarterback room when you look at it. I mean, Milton's played in a Power 5 game. Hooker's played in a Power 5 game. Harrison Bailey started Power 5 game. Brian Bauer started a Power 5 game. Kaidon Salter's yet to be on the practice field for a Power 5 team. So he's playing a lot of catch-up.
Brent Hubbs and Austin Price with us from Volquest.com. Coming up, we discuss recruiting for Heupel and his staff. Just setting the table here, is it about where we expected it would be from the jump? Austin will give us his thoughts on that versus where it is right now and a big period coming up around the corner.
And I'm going to ask Brent about a column he wrote about pride and the price of pride at Tennessee in regards to the baseball program that we're going to get into.
But first, Chad, tell us about Renters Warehouse and the great folks that have joined us here at OutKick 360.
Love talking about Renters Warehouse because I know firsthand how they help people, and I've heard from a lot of satisfied customers with Renters Warehouse. You can call them right now at 615-398-9550. We'd urge you to go to their website, though. They created this just for the show, rwnashville.com. Again, rwnashville.com. They've got the upfront rent program going on right now. By giving you your money up front, Renters Warehouse helps minimize risk and provides financial flexibility so you can build long-term wealth. Renters Warehouse is Nashville's leader in property management and the only company providing upfront rent. The upfront rent program, available for a limited time. Call Renters Warehouse at 615-398-9550, or you can visit the website rwnashville.com. That's rwnashville.com to see if you qualify. Do it the Renters Warehouse way and get tomorrow's rent today.
Brent Hubbs of VolQuest.com and Austin Price from Peter Millar's shop. They continue with us next from OutKick.
Tenants can have all kinds of issues, but when Renters Warehouse handles your property management, we take the hit. The refrigerator light bulb burned out. Little Tommy broke a window. There's a critter in the basement that could eat a cat. There's a hot tub in the kitchen. Mary Jane in the closet. Pirate on the roof. Someone had a party. Someone released the Kraken. Indoor roller derby. Indoor compost heap. Unauthorized sublet. Cuban cigars. Food fight. Dirt fight. Skunk fight. Anything else?
VenturesWarehouse.com.
Volquest's Power Hour rolls on here on OutKick 360 alongside Chad Withrow and Paul Kuharski. I'm Jonathan Hutton, joined by Brent Hubbs and Austin Price, who join us from Knoxville, and you can read their great work at Volquest.com. You've got the War Room, which is available every single Friday morning, available now at Volquest.com. Worth the monthly subscription based on that alone. And Chad, another thing you can get right now at Volquest is a great column from Brent Hubbs.
Yeah, and Brent, I enjoyed your column about pride and the price of pride at times, and what the investment maybe should be into the baseball program under Tony Vitello, even though it's a program that is not a big money maker for the university. What do you think about what that program and that team has done in terms of pride with Tennessee fans, and how do you think Danny White is thinking about the cost of that pride that you mentioned in the column?
Well, I think fans love a winner, okay? And here's the thing about Tony Vitello. He's not just winning this year. This is not a blip on the radar. 2 years ago, they were a regional team. Last year, before the season got cut short, they were off to a fantastic start, and we're going to be a regional team. So this is not a situation where they've cycled up for 1 year and there's going to be this big drop-off. So I think the bigger question for Danny White, and the thing you have to look at it from a Tennessee's perspective is how competitive you want to be in baseball, period. Your facilities are getting lapped. I mean, they're bad. They're at the bottom of the league, and whether Tony Vitello is your coach or not, you're going to have to upgrade your facilities if you're going to want to be competitive in baseball. You're not going to be able to continue to recruit and be successful. It's a credit and a hell of a job by Tony Vitello that he's been able to do that and put this program where it's at, given where the facilities are. So it's not just a question about building facilities to keep Tony. It's about building facilities to make baseball competitive in the most competitive league in the country. To do that, you're going to have to make an investment in that. And are you going to get rich off of it? No, probably not. It's just you're not. But if you want to be competitive in it, you want to have pride in that program, you're going to have to make a financial investment. I think Danny White knows that. He was a part of the stadium build at Ole Miss when they took debt on there, knowing it was going to be hard to repay that debt back. So I think he understands that part of it, and he better understand it quickly because everybody is going to come after Tony Vitello.
What do you guys think about the ongoing debate about on-campus baseball stadium versus this proposed downtown Knoxville baseball stadium?
Well,
I don't think.
Go ahead,
Go ahead, Brent.
Well, Vitello doesn't want to play off campus. He wants to be on campus. That doesn't mean he won't play some big games or marquee games or things like that at a downtown facility. I think there's two reasons for that. One, the atmosphere when you put college baseball in a facility that holds that capacity is 25,000 or whatever is very different. And so I think he wants to keep things on campus, a little more of an intimate environment, if you will, add some club things down the left field line, add the porch, stuff that, you would not have that kind of intimacy with a minor league ballpark. I think the other thing, too, is the scheduling standpoint. He can add a game on a Tuesday night if he wants to. You know what I'm saying? If he feels like his team needs to play an extra midweek game, he can get a deal done in a hurry, and he doesn't have to worry about it because it's his park and it's his use of that park whenever he wants to. So that's why he's more on campus with an on-campus facility or more on board with that. And Austin, I understand those arguments. On the flip side, I see where Randy Boyd could look at it and say, hey, we save a lot of money if we just play in the downtown ballpark. It's going to be about 2 miles from campus.
Yeah, I mean, I see the advantage to both. And in fact, if I was Tennessee, I would try to work it out, improve Lindsey Nelson, do some of the things you want to do to that facility, but also when it calls for it, be able to use the downtown ballpark. I think you can still do both and do it effectively and make it a neat type thing. So a perfect example is like do you feel like you can get more people into Lindsey Nelson or enough people into Lindsey Nelson versus getting more people in the downtown minor league park, because for a big weekend series, I think that could ultimately, have a huge determining factor on, playing a series against Vanderbilt, which is, a perennial power in baseball, or Arkansas or LSU or one of these other really good teams in this conference.
That off-campus always sounds tempting, and 2 miles doesn't sound like a lot. But we have any examples of successful off-campus program of anything in the SEC or anywhere? I don't know. Does that resonate?
Well, I mean, you have, I guess, South Carolina's basketball facility is off campus,
and their football,
and so is football. I guess their baseball is too. But their campus stretches from the outskirts on the southern end of Columbia to the north. I mean, their campus is very odd. It doesn't have it does. It sprawls through the whole city. So that's really the only one that I could think of in that way. So. Particularly now with alcohol sales on campus, that's not an attractive deal like it used to be to an off-campus venue, things like that. So,
what about Rupp Arena? Is Rupp Arena an example? Isn't that downtown?
Yeah, it is. It's considered downtown, and that's worked out fine for. But I mean, a long time. It's about the same distance as what it would be for Tennessee to go over there for baseball that way. But nothing else plays in Rupp Arena. They don't share that venue with anybody either.
Well, let's face it. Doesn't it make it easier if you stay on campus for the frat kids to roll over there and have themselves a little bit of fun, and then they walk quietly back 100 yards to their frat house?
It's part of that atmosphere.
Safer for college students.
That's what Chad did, right? Before, during, and after Tour de France.
I went to 2 baseball games my entire career at Tennessee, Arizona State and LSU. Once I was not a big going to baseball, and I lived in the frat houses. We could hear the baseball game from my backyard of the frat house and take it in, but I didn't go to a lot of games. Now, this brand of baseball is a little bit more exciting, I think. They were going to the College World Series when I was in school also. But yeah, I think there's validity to both plans, and I can certainly understand the financial incentives as to why you want to partner with downtown or someone else, but I think it's easy. It's on campus. If you're that program, that's where you want it.
Austin, as we switch gears and go back to recruiting for a moment, Josh Heupel, we mentioned this last week with Hubs, entering a crucial period of recruiting right around the corner. Give us an idea of the thoughts on Josh Heupel, where he was to where he's now. What he's stepping into, the questions around his recruiting at UCF, and whether or not, again, at the time of the hire, he would be able to step in and do that at Tennessee. From what you've seen, and you would certainly know, following recruiting as closely as you do, what's been the response to Heupel on the recruiting trail, behind the scenes?
Well, I've told Brent this several times. Guys, the one guy that most kids talk about when I talk to them is the one guy that had the, notion coming in that he wasn't a strong recruiter, and that's Josh Heupel. I mean, I don't know how many kids. I'm like, will you talk to this guy? Well, yeah, but I really love Coach Heupel. I really love Coach Heupel, and it's just right down the line. I mean, I think he's proving to be a better recruiter than given credit for, and maybe that part is because he knows at this level he's got to be, and there's no. I'm not saying he cut corners before. I'm just saying, he's got to be on point every time he's on the phone with a prospect, because you don't know what kind of impact that has from one phone call to the next. And so he's drawn rave reviews from prospects, whether it be in-state, out-of-state. Look at a guy like Cam Miller out of Memphis. I won't say that he's running that recruitment, but he is super involved in Cam, and Cam knows it. And so does Cam's family, and they've taken notice of how much Coach Heupel has kind of, been involved there.
Any other particular names from the staff that have popped up along with Heupel in that regard?
Well, I think Alex Golish has done a good job. He's got part of the mid-state. Jerry Mack. I think Jerry Mack's gonna be a lot like David Johnson was on Coach Pruitt's staff. I don't think he's ever going to be like, this guy where you're like, he's only a recruiter, because I think he's a football coach. but I think he's super capable in recruiting. And the fact he's been a head coach, he's been a coordinator, now just a position coach, I think he can wear all the hats. He's impressive. He relates well to kids. And so, when these prospects talk to a Jabari Small or a Jalen Wright, I continue to be told that those kids rave about him. Now, again, I don't think he's ever going to be flashy. He's not going to be on Twitter and doing all those little things like some of the coaches do. But I think he's going to be steady Eddie and really, really productive on the recruiting trail.
I want both you guys to chime in on this one. Identifying fit in recruiting. Butch Jones, and you guys have talked about it, was more of a star catcher. He wouldn't really evaluate fit as much as I want to get the most 4 and 5 stars I can and cast a wide net and throw out a lot of offers and get those guys. Jeremy Pruitt did a good job in recruiting and got some big-time recruits to Knoxville and maybe did a better job in fit when you look at all those big-time recruits who left when Jeremy Pruitt got fired. That clearly they wanted to be a part of the program. And his problem was more offensively there. Josh Heupel at identifying fit. What have you guys heard about him? What have you learned about him in his short time there of maybe going out and finding the guys that not everyone is after, but makes perfect sense for his scheme and his culture and his program?
Well, I'll go first here, and I want Austin obviously to jump in because he dives into it every day, in a lot of different ways. I think that fit is of more importance to Josh Heupel than to Jeremy Pruitt from this standpoint. Jeremy Pruitt, when he came to Tennessee, had recruited at Alabama, Georgia, Florida State. So he was recruiting national recruits and had been for a decade, essentially. And so he had relationships and ties in with all those guys. And so he was going in recruiting at that level. For Josh Heupel, he wasn't going head-to-head against Georgia and head-to-head against Alabama and head-to-head against Auburn. So he's got to get himself established to win those things. So for Josh Heupel, to me, it's all about fit right now. It is finding the right guys because it's not just that you're going to throw down this gauntlet, hey, I'm going to go sign 4 stars and 5 stars, because that's not where Tennessee's at. Because one, Heupel hasn't recruited like that in his previous stops at UCF. 2, Tennessee's got the NCAA investigation hanging over their head that's affecting them in recruiting, Austin. So I think when you look at this from a Tennessee's perspective, fit is a very key word in evaluations for who Tennessee ends up landing in this class.
I couldn't agree more. Don't make a mistake when I'm going to stay here. Recruiting the best players and highly ranked guys matters. Okay, look at the top teams in college football, but those teams also have guys that they've identified that maybe weren't top 150, top 250 players that they end up kind of bringing in, developing over that the course of time, and they end up really productive in their program. Tennessee's got to find a way to hit on those type of evaluations. Perfect example is the last class. I think Jalen Wright and Miles Campbell, 2 kids were here in midterm, and I know they've been here 4 months. But I'll be shocked if we don't look up 4 years from now and think, those kids weren't really highly ranked. Maybe part because COVID, but maybe not. But they were super productive during their college career and really good players, better than what they were ranked coming out of high school. And so I think you have to be able to find the fit for your program. You've got to be able to find players that their best football is ahead of them. You don't want to pick a player that's peaked in high school, isn't going to get bigger, isn't going to get faster, those type of things. So for me, it's being selective, not just taking kids to take kids. And you're right, not chasing stars, not just taking some of those quote paper 4 stars, and going out there and getting the best player that fits your system.
Yeah, they've got to answer it, Jonathan, this way. Somebody put it this way earlier this week. I think it's a great example. They have to land, to flip this thing around and rebuild it, they have to land more guys who outperform their rankings than anything else in recruiting early on here, much the way Rick Barnes did with Admiral Schofield and Grant Williams.
And they got to fix quarterback.
Yes.
Because ultimately, that's what matters most.
Absolutely.
Brent, start with you on this. It's hard to just talk straight college football and have a huge topic on the sport right now without talking name, image, likeness. Behind the scenes, have you been able to gather, like, are staffs devoting a lot of manpower to putting together their plan for how they're going to recruit in the future, how they're going to pitch this to people? We mentioned that, Arch Manning is going to be the prime target for NIL moving forward in this, and a great example of it with the full-on pitch from universities. How does Tennessee prepare for this as a staff? How do they stay a step ahead, maybe not even a step ahead, in stride with the universities that we know are going to crush it when it comes to NIL?
Well, I think Tennessee's already having conversations with prospects about NIL. Now, are they having detailed PowerPoints of this is exactly how it works and that? I don't think anybody there, I don't think you can accurately do that at this point because you're waiting on the NCAA to vote on it later in late June, which will really lay out a lot of the parameters for how all of that is going to work. But those conversations are already taking place because you have some recruits now who are savvy enough and understand that and have questions about it. So, yes, they've had conversations as a staff. They've had conversations with administrators, Austin, and we know they've made some presentations, small presentations, but at least had the conversations with some recruits about NIL.
Yeah, and you have to. I mean, you have to be forward-thinking in this. I do think Tennessee, as a program, has got a pretty good little spot here because, Knoxville's an actual city, whereas like Oxford or Auburn or Starkville, and they're small little towns. So you have more industry, corporations, all those type of things right here in the backyard. And so, Tennessee's got to find a way to be ready on the jump because when this thing happens, it's going to be fast and furious, much like when the dead period ends. College athletics is really going to change over the next 45 days, in my opinion, a lot, whether it be just how, this recruiting class is shaped, or how, the name, image, likeness stuff, gets voted in and how that changes things. I mean, I do think we're talking about a small percentage of athletes that are going to earn money, though. I mean, in my opinion, I just think it's hard to believe that there's going to be all this money for, Larry, the second string middle linebacker. To me, this is going to be for the John Fulkersons and the Kennedy Chandlers and Arch Mannings, and you're basically the face of your franchise, so to speak, more so than anything else.
Brent, you said something there about guys being savvy, or some guys being savvy enough to understand it. How much is that in play here? What percentage of guys being recruited have some sort of understanding of this before coaches start coming in there and laying out what it is? And how much is this who can best, maybe not necessarily lay out what it is, but convince or con them into what it's going to be?
Well, I think you have to be careful here if you're a school. I mean, you've got to lay out how it works, but you better be cautious and careful into talking about what the expectations of money might or might not be. I mean, I've seen some former players at Georgia and some of the talk about Georgia in a story I read about how much money Todd Gurley would have made or this guy would have made. We don't have any idea what those guys would have realistically made. So I think if you're a school, you've got to lay out a plan of action of here's how the plan would work. But you can't be sitting there going, hey, if you come to school X, you're going to make $250,000 a year, or you're going to make this a year, because there's no way anybody can accurately put that number out there. And here's one thing. It's one thing to mislead somebody in recruiting about how many running backs they've got in the room, or how many quarterbacks they're going to end up taking. It's a whole nother thing to misrepresent or to mislead a family into how much money you're going to be able to put in your pocket with the NLI rule compared to what ultimately ends up happening. So I think schools got to be very cautious about what they're promising out there to kids, because you don't want to mess with somebody's money. I don't care who you are. That's not going to end very well.
Austin Price and Brent Hubbs, Volquest.com. Austin, I'm assuming you were on the golf course instead of at Neyland Stadium for the Top Golf event. Did you see that?
I did see it. It's still going on.
Is it?
Scott Stallings Scott Stallings is over there today, and you know, go do a little thing. I think he was there this morning. PGA Tour player and who lives here in town, and then it's still going on the next couple of days. So now I've not been over there. I'm saving my first time with you guys. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
I want it to be special, and and that's the big thing. I mean, I expect and I fully expect everybody to be in OutKick Peter Millar gear. Clay needs to deliver on this. If Clay does not deliver on this, my appearance may be in jeopardy.
Don't give him any big ideas. And that is very special because you always remember your first. You always remember your first. And Austin playing Topgolf for the first time will be at 360 Masters, which is coming up on Thursday, June 10th. We're less than 3 weeks away from the big night. Thursday, June 10th, you can go to our link tree, which is linked in our bio right now, wherever you're watching, and you can find the sign-up for the Eventbrite link, 360 Masters. And Volquest will have a bay. Brent and Austin will be in town. They will be teeing off to benefit the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society of Tennessee.
Cherry Orchard.
Yeah, what's the name of the hole?
Weeping Cherry.
Weeping Cherry.
Oh, hey, and on the way out, I did walk by Peter Millar's store in Atlanta last week in Avalon. And I was with my, Claire and I had our dog with us, and she's like, you need to take a photo and send that to Austin and the crew. Otherwise, I would have gone in. I did peek inside the Peter Millar shop, Brent, and just so you know, if I stepped inside the store, I would have felt out of place. Like I shouldn't be here right now.
It had a cover to it.
There was no clearance rack in there.
That's how high level it was. Like they should be. Yeah, there should be a rope that you have to step behind to get into shop.
He's leaving out the part where Brody, the dog, barked wildly at a mannequin that looked exactly like Austin Priceless. Modeling Peter Millar.
He doesn't bark. He doesn't bark in public. He's very good.
That's what was so surprising.
Well, it's not a surprise. I mean, there are no red tag items at the Peter Millar store, and Austin, it's like he's hitting a flux capacitor when he goes into one of those because you just don't see him. You don't know where he went. He just disappears, and he comes back sometime later, and he's got 18 bags. I can't imagine. I mean, on his travel back from this last golf trip, I'm sure there was an extra suitcase involved in the return because of all the gear that he brought home. That's where it's at. He's into Peter Millar, and I'm just glad I could find a collared shirt today for Kaharski so that he's not mad at me. So
you look great.
We're making some progress for Paul.
Austin
I can never be at Austin.
I am, and I know we're up against it. I am so bad at going in one of those stores or into a golf course that sells a lot of Peter Millar because there's so much stuff. I'm overwhelmed, and I take forever.
Figures.
We'll close it this way. We really need to get Peter Millar as a sponsor if we're going to continue these segment discussions of Peter Millar. And there again, I said it again for free, but we've got to get them on board as a sponsor.
Sponsors the Tennessee Power Hour on Fridays.
Perfect.
Thanks, boys.
Guys, thank you, guys.
All right, guys.
Thanks,
Y'all have a
guys.
good weekend.
You too. Brent Hubbs, Austin Price there, VolQuest.com.
Hutton, when we come back, David Poyle said something before the Predators playoff series with the Hurricanes began that is bugging me now that they're down 0-2. And it's my turn in the parlay game. I'll give you guys our play for the weekend.
Getting a winner, the 360 Weekend Parlay. Time to write down a winner next on OutKick 360. Hang with us.
When you have people renting your house, you may get a call about a certain plumbing issue. Someone has dropped the kids off at the pool, sunk a sausage, cooked a meatloaf in the porcelain saucepan, downloaded a brown load. And now they need someone to plunge in and clear the air. So, would you rather that call go to you or to Renter's Warehouse? Thought so. Remember, when the call's about number 2, you'll be glad you work with number 1.
VenturesWarehouse.com.
The 360 Masters is back. Hey, it's Hutton. Hope you'll join us on June 10th for a one-of-a-kind event with OutKick 360, other great writers and producers from OutKick, including David Reed, who will throw his back out again for the second annual event. Thursday, June 10th. You can sign up on Eventbrite or just follow us on Twitter at OutKick360. 100% of the proceeds will go to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society of Tennessee. Hope you'll join us for a great event. Get your team today and join us at Topgolf Nashville for the 360 Masters. OutKick 360 wrapping up a great Friday edition as we head into the weekend. We hope everyone has a great weekend ahead. And you can follow along with us throughout the weekend on Instagram, our Instagram story. Headed to Preds game tonight at Bridgestone Arena, Game 3, as the Preds take on the Hurricanes down 0-2, Paul.
So Adam Vingan wrote today at The Athletic, and he was talking about the big boys having to step up, which is something we've been talking about. And he's got a paragraph on Johansson, a paragraph on Deshaun, a paragraph on Forsberg, which leads him into this quote that David Poyle said before the series. But he's clearly, where this quote is placed, not talking about the rookies and the kids. He's talking about the team. Mm-hmm. And he said, I'm going to find out a lot about our team and about the individuals on our team. I'm going to find out how good Carolina is and what the difference is between these two teams. All of those things are going to go into the decision-making process in the offseason as to where we go with the franchise. Now, of course, the second part, of course, you know, how you do in this frames a little bit about where you go in the future. But this thing, I'm going to find out a lot about our team and about the individuals of our team. I've heard David Poyle say a lot. At what point do you know about these people? I mean, it keeps kind of, to me, pushing back. Like, I want him to know about Matt Deshaun. I want him to know about Philip Forsberg. I want him to know about Ryan Johansson. I don't like that every time he gets to a point like this, there's more to learn. Does he know the roster? Does he know these guys? Or does he keep pushing back an opinion on what he has in these guys? I think we know. I don't think they're coming back from 0-2 down. He doesn't have to make a decision right now. But I don't like this kind of thing where, well, we're going to learn more about our guys. These have been your guys for some time, most of them.
I kind of like that. The way I interpret it is he's going to know how they stack up against the best in the East. And playoffs are the proving ground for teams. Great once you get in, but once you get there, that's the proving ground. So I take it more of a, now we know we're nowhere near the top of the league, right? That to me so far is what this series is showing them. They weren't near Carolina throughout the regular season, and they haven't been close to them really through two games.
Not close to the Coyotes in the tournament last year.
A year ago, a team that they should be very much like and beat were the Coyotes, and they weren't close there. So I see it more as a proving ground of they're going to know what to do with this team and how far off they are after this season. I hope that's the case.
There's been a commitment to a core group of guys, and after this series, if in fact they are swept, or if they, to me, the expectation should be at least 6 games with this group, because they're the clear and decisive underdog of this series. And as I mentioned yesterday, that shouldn't be acceptable with the money that they're paying for these certain stars to be stepping up in these moments, and they're not. So some answers will be determined based on how they're playing in the postseason, regardless of how they played down the stretch of the season. So I understand where he's coming from that perspective, but here's hoping he acts on it if, in fact, it's needed. I don't see how he couldn't, because some decisions would have to be made, and behind the scenes you have to ask, we made this investment, it didn't work, it's not going to work, how long is it going to take, where you figure out how long we can go with the current group versus moving on to the next core group of players. How long can you rely on a core group of players that's not producing in the first round of the postseason?
Yeah, how long can you say write a story like Vingan's writing, saying it's time for the big boys to step up?
Well, and
I think we know what these big boys are.
Think about how much this weekend is going to confirm or change our thoughts going into Monday's show.
They'll split.
After this weekend, I think they're getting swept.
They might.
But after this weekend, I mean, Hutton, I agree with you. The year, and correct me if I'm wrong, the year that they won the President's Trophy, they played Colorado in the first round and won in 6 games, right? That's a 6-game series when the Preds were the best team in hockey that year. Now Carolina's one of the best teams in hockey. They should be the Colorado-type team at the very least. They should be able to push a team like this for 6 games before losing. If they get swept, and we're coming back here Monday doing a post-mortem of their season, or the opportunity in front of them this weekend at home and what they could do and make this series interesting, it's going to be an eventful show from a Preds perspective come Monday.
I'm thrilled to be in attendance tonight because the Preds and the Hurricanes are setting the standard for pro sports. Aside from the UFC, we're seeing the 2 franchises that have opened up their arena above 10,000. Washington and Boston combined in their buildings will not have 12,000 people. Vegas just pushed to 6,000. Florida hosted 12,000 for the UFC and got national attention. Tampa Bay and Florida haven't pushed this far open yet. So I can't wait to be in attendance and feel the energy of Bridgestone Arena. Can the Preds take advantage of that? Because the Hurricanes stepped up and took advantage of home ice, and now the Preds have to push it back and at least get it to 2-1. If they get swept and then they get swept on home ice Sunday, I mentioned this yesterday. I haven't felt the divide between the fan base and a head coach this divisive in a long time. They're just very dismissive of John Hines.
And Laviolette was not a popular guy.
And
so that's saying something.
But he was popular with some.
Yeah.
You know, he was popular because of what he had produced with this team and certain players. Fans are very dismissive of this head coach. And if this head coach gets swept in the first round after what we saw last year, there will be some vocal fan base reaction to all of this.
Strong segment of the fan base that thinks he's over his head.
And we'll be honest with it on Monday.
Strong segment that thinks he's over his head.
Paul, what we got tonight?
Sure.
All right. White Sox, 7 of the last 8, they've scored 4 or fewer. Yankees, 3 of the last 4, they've scored 2 runs. Stanton's out of the lineup. Yankees, White Sox tonight, under 8.5 runs. Atlanta Hawks at the Knicks tonight, 15,000 people at Madison Square Garden for the first postseason game since 2013. Knicks money line.
Madison Square Garden have 15,000 people, but yet, anyway, keep going.
Knicks money line over the Hawks in that game.
Money line?
Money line. And to sweeten it up and make you guys happy because you want European soccer in the mix, Chelsea over Aston Villa, minus 220. You got to make sure you take the minus 220 there because home and away gets flipped in European soccer. So the total of those 3 is plus 408, $5 to win 2042.
Let's
Quickly,
go.
Paul, give us it one more time. Under in the White Sox.
Yankees, White Sox under, Hawks, Knicks money line, Chelsea money line over Aston Villa.
Doing it right now. FanDuel Sportsbook.
We are back at it on Monday. Hit us up on Twitter, on Instagram at OutKick360. And remember, on Monday, make sure you're subscribed. Go do it right now. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. Search out OutKick360 channel on YouTube. I apologize for making this so difficult. You have to put in channel because YouTube, I don't get it. OutKick360 channel. Subscribe. Ring that bell. Join us on Monday at noon, exclusively on the OutKick360 channel through YouTube.
Bang, bang.
Spend the weekend not blocking the box and locking the lock.